أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the master of the day of judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to his magnificence, his omnipotence, his might, his glory, to his being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the day of judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. As we approach nearer to the month of Ramadan, may Allah bless us to be amongst those who actually reach it and take benefit from it. One of the more often narrations within the prophetic tradition that describes Ramadan that we would want to take benefit from in these days before we meet them has the Prophet ﷺ telling his companions, and essentially all of us generations later, that with the advent of the month of Ramadan, the gates of Jannah are opened, the gates of Jahannam are closed, and the shayateen, they are chained. The mode in which this hadith quite often is offered to us is through a mode of spiritual inspiration. An idea that we have a reality of an opening, a closing, and a binding that gives us an indication that a time is coming, may Allah bless us to reach it, that if you have experienced prior to, you know that it's different from other days in the calendar year. But we don't want to reduce this hadith just purely to something that evokes sentiment. More so, we want to be able to understand what it's offering to us in a prescription of moral clarity, giving us a recognition that the ease through which we are given taysir, divine facilitation, does not remove what we call taklif or moral accountability. But the whole idea with the diminishing of impact from external variables that can have us be swayed in different directions is to create a moral clarity that enables me to understand a little bit more about who I am and what is it that I'm becoming. Futihat abwab al-Jannah, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that the gates of Jannah are opened with the advent of Ramadan. When you think about the doors being open, it doesn't limit for us an understanding that you got to still walk through the door. An exertion of action is necessary in order for me to get to something that, if it is opened, that in and of itself does not denote that I'm walking or entering through it. The whole idea with it gives to us a sense of hope that is not meant to be, again, something that is romanticized or sentimental, but it becomes within what Islamic theology and law evoke again and again for its practitioner, a much needed sense of hope that enables us to then be motivated to have ethical exertion in our actions. The idea that the gates of paradise are open is not so that we just know that they're open, but so that we work towards actually getting through them. May Allah make us people of Jannah. And creating now a sense that there becomes a deepening of ease between intention and action. Futihat abwab al-Jannah gives to us an understanding, not that Allah becomes more merciful in the month of Ramadan, because our theology is rooted in an understanding that every characteristic, attribute of the divine that we are taught and made aware of has eternality to it. There's not an increase or a decrease from the sense of the divine having changed. He is al-Ghani. But human receptivity to that rahmah now becomes intensified. I have a capacity to actually feel divine presence distinctly and differently in the course of the month of Ramadan. The actuality of it is not just simply metaphorical. It's not meant to illustrate for us something that we take in a sense of poeticness, but to understand it for the reality of which it's meant to offer to us. A hope that is important because so many of us live in despair. A despair that has us knocked to the ground when relationships don't work out the way that we were hoping for them to. A despair that knocks us down when aspiration and achievement don't necessarily become so close, but there's a lot of distance between what it is that I dream of achieving and the achievement actually coming in hand. Sometimes it doesn't even come at all. Work gets tough, family gets tough, everything gets tough. People seek to confine us as minorities into boxes that we're definitely bigger than. But again and again and again, the socialization is rooted in a trust that is purely that is materialistic. My sense of self-worth is rooted in the degree that I harness, whether I have a ring on my finger or not, how many children that I might have, or how many rooms are in a house that I possess. And then if it doesn't happen, hopelessness kicks in. Futihat abwab al-Jannah. It's about recalibrating and realigning in terms of what is it that I'm really in pursuit of. Laylatul Qadr, may Allah bless us to reach it and take benefit from it. The day of Jumu'ah itself being more Mubarak. Ramadan being a month that is distinct from other months. These are not just things to be understood from a chronological standpoint, but to be able to recognize the purpose through which they are given to us, and the one that is in control of all time, both acting within it and upon it, is giving to us an indication something's coming, man, that's beautiful. Why are you waiting till its first day to get ready for it? Futihat abwab al-jannah. Openings are again and again mentioned in our tradition so that we are bold and audacious enough to actually walk through them, to take advantage of it. You don't ask Allah every single prayer, "Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim," just so you know where the path is. You ask Him so that you could walk on the path. And understanding what's being removed is attachment to things that don't make any sense, diminishing consumption, instilling restraint, allowing for a routine to experience the day, not now as a consumer, but truly in the schedule and routine of someone who is Abdullah. And it is recognized through this prism of the first part of this hadith, Futihat abwab al-jannah, the gates of Jannah, they are open. So start taking the steps to get through them. And don't think success is that a door was open for you slightly by somebody who wants you to seek validation from the very systems that were built to make you loathe yourself. You're not beautiful because somebody that you work for told you you are beautiful. You are beautiful whether you have that job or not. You have innate beauty that can get diluted by just the consumption of what is materialistic. Futihat abwab al-jannah is not telling us just about something that is forthcoming. It's telling us about a theology that influences how I behave through belief right now. Do I want to walk through those doors that are open? Or am I content just in chasing after the things that I was entitled to have in the first place? But people in positions of power and privilege make me believe that because they give me what was mine to begin with, I'm supposed to show gratitude for it. The gates of the fire, they are closed. May Allah protect us from the pits of chastisement, from Jahannam. Where the gates of Jannah being open can give us hope, the gates of Jahannam being closed can create a means of assurance, an understanding and a recognition that my future does not get foreclosed because of a past that I lived through. I'm not in a place where I enable an anxiety that paralyzes me because I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, or a grief that is depressive that anchors me to a past that I can no longer change anymore to determine how I take steps in this world, or even the lack thereof. I'm just stuck. Ghuligat abwab an-nar, the doors of Jahannam are closed. An assurance that says that the month in and of itself is not meant to be understood as something miraculous, but it's meant to be understood as an opportunity to turn back, to reorient, to take steps that are not just mechanical. Why are you going to do Ramadan the same way you did it as last year? You are not today who you were a year ago. If you are anticipating the same steps and the same postures and the same procedures from daylight to the end of the day and even thereafter, how can growth come if there's not an embrace of change? The whole idea is for me to not see it isolated as 30 days and 30 nights that after they're done, I pretended like they never happened, but a potential that enables me to say that there's not any two of us in this room who would be talking to each other, that it's not two sinners talking to each other, man. And when the gates of Jahannam are closed, it gives to us a sense of recognition that there are again yet diminishing of obstacles that cannot give me now justification of excuses. I either have to own up to what it is that I'm bringing, because the most merciful of those who show mercy is creating an opportunity for me to be able to have that moral clarity. May Allah make us those who start to see this world through a vision of our heart and not be in a place where we are afraid any longer to be Muslim in reality in every sense of the word. Ghulikat abwab an-nar. the gates of Jahannam are closed. The opportunity to get back up after you have fallen. Sometimes in Ramadan, especially as you get to the end of it, the link between redemption and forgiveness just gets a little closer. It's a little easier to make that dua. It's a little easier to do istighfar. It's a little easier to apologize to somebody that I've wronged. The detachment of certain things and the realities that Allah is giving to us that are not, again, metaphorical, but identifying themselves as inherent characteristics through the way that He has ordained those days to be. And it summates itself in a third prong that ties all of it together. Sufidat the shayateen, they're chained. It doesn't mean that evil stops happening. If anything, you could still open up television screens and read magazines and look at feeds online that are giving you an indication that humanity each and every day is dying more and more and more. May Allah make us people who have wakeful hearts and not people who are stuck in the dunya. Sufidat al-Shayateen gives us an understanding that is not just academic in its nature. It's not about just sitting down and saying, you know what, I heard this one talk one day on YouTube where I was sitting in a conference and I'm going to add rhetoric to something that says this is what this means in terms of which shayateen are chained and which ones are not chained. All you have to know is through all of it together, these three things primarily, futihat abwab al-jannah, ghulikat abwab al-nar, wa sufidat al-shayateen. Allah is trying to make it easier for you to succeed. And if the shayateen are chained, it gives us a sense of understanding that all forms of evil are not external. But some aspects of evil, they're internal and they're within me. May Allah cleanse me of it. That I'm in a place where I can look to societal understandings that reinforce how it is that I live. I look to desire. I look to my nafs, my ego. These things don't get suspended. They're all still there. Dunya, hawa, the nafs, they're all still there in Ramadan. The potential for me to have moral clarity as a point of understanding of my capacity to do good can only reach its pinnacle if I'm also comfortable with confronting the things that are coming from within me that are not good. All forms of evil are not externalized. And if the gates of Jannah are opened, which they are, and if the gates of Jahannam are closed, in which they are, and if the shayateen are chained in that month of Ramadan, which they are, you cannot then outsource responsibility to something metaphysical. You have to be able to start to see that these things are coming from me. Ramadan is upon me and I'm still making excuses as to why I'm not admitting the wrong that I do. The nafs is real. I still find joy in speaking ill of somebody. I'm still justifying racist tendencies that give more credence to cultural norms that are in deep conflict with religious norms. The moral clarity and perspective is rooted in a recognition that sometimes it's actually coming from me. It's become a habituated behavior, a mindset, and a perspective that the opportunity for me to overcome it requires me to first acknowledge it, that that's not because of the person that I stay in a house with or the people that I have friendships with, or it's not coming from the waswas of shaitan. That's coming from my lower self. My greed, my lust, my selfishness, my indifference towards what it is that others go through. That's coming from me. Evil in and of itself does not stop. That's not the point of Ramadan. It's not this kind of utopian-esque sense that I live in La La Land, walking to the masjid every night, breaking fast with people and standing with believers. May Allah accept this from it. There's still going to be people who have no food to eat, whether the sun is up or down. What Ramadan offers to me an opportunity is to be able to think out that in one of the coldest winters that this city has ever experienced, how come I'm still not thinking about the people who sleep on the streets? How come I am content with loads of closets full of whatever else it is? Not in a way that's self deprecating, but in a way that positions itself within realities that are mentioned prior to that are Jannah and Jahannam, and allows for me to then start thinking inwardly. I'm still yelling at my kids and it's Ramadan. I still don't thank people in my life who have done things for me and it's Ramadan. I'm still in a place where all I can do is point out what's wrong and see what's not there and see the world through scarcity rather than abundance. It's still hard for me to tell the people that I love them, to express gratitude for those who have done for me. I have more of a tendency to complain and complain and complain and point out all flaws and what's wrong with other people. And all I do is hate on myself all day. See as an opportunity to be able to think, and you don't want to create busyness and hecticness. That's not what the point of iftars are, or the tarawih prayers, that you are so embedded now in a distraction that turns something good into something that removes an opportunity for contemplation of growth and change, that allows for me to leave the month better than what I started it in, but also then sustain as best as I can the change. Just be honest with yourself. The person you are today, is it different from the person you were at this point in Sha'ban a year ago? What happened? The opportunity for us to have malleability comes to us through divine intervention and facilitation. But taysir was never meant to be a removal of taklif. Allah bringing ease to us by opening the gates of Jannah in Ramadan and closing the gates of Jahannam in Ramadan and chaining the shayateen in Ramadan wasn't so that I would lessen in moral accountability. It was so that I would increase in my sense of moral responsibility. I would start to understand my capacity. I would enable myself to start to truly see how I am embedded in what is the reality that I find myself in, not through foolish tropes that systems of anti-blackness seek to impose upon us, that if you just work harder, you'll be successful. Don't follow this kind of foolishness. That's not who our teacher is. Our teacher, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, teaches us about a religion that's rooted in reality, that does not fall into a place where we become now worshipers of wealth to such an extent that we start repeating statements that have absolutely no sense to it. What do you want to look like at the end of this Ramadan if Allah blesses you to reach it and get to its end? What do you want to look 3 months after Ramadan, 6 months after Ramadan? The vulnerabilities and insecurities that each one of us subjectively experience, where I can get succumbed to by shaitan's whispers, are not the same as yours, and vice versa. But any one of us who believes that there's not something that we could fall into has already now gotten to a place where Iblis has control over us. May Allah protect us from his whispers. Sufidat the shayateen, there is a diminishment of the control that they have over you. And whether you know it or not, Iblis definitely knows it. And what you want to be mindful of in the coming days ahead, as we get closer and closer to that month, that these three realities through this hadith, plus so many more that you know, but now you want to start to behave based off of an understanding of them. Shaitan knows that it's going to be different. And you got to anticipate, where can he get you the most to slip up in these days? Don't let embarrassment, especially an unhealthy form of it, get in the way. Don't let the ego be what gets you to a place that makes you believe that you don't ever slip up or make mistakes. Don't turn yourself into a person also that has dissonance. Explain away somebody else's ill behaviors for you. Those people are responsible for their choices. If they can't admit the wrong that they do to you, you don't have to make justifications for it. The next 2 weeks, where can Shaitan get you to slip up? What's going to make you worried, anxious, stressed, angry? What are the touch points that just have you erupt into a place of irrational emotion? What are the spaces that you frequent that you know when you go there, you're not the person that you want to become? What are the things that you feel the most vulnerability of insecurity around that keeps you from seeing yourself the way that Allah sees you? Who are the people that you don't treat well in your life? And where will Shaitan get you to enhance those things when he has little room left to get you to be steps behind where you could be in the coming months? You don't want silly reasons to take away from any moment of that month of barakah, but you also don't want silly reasons to take away from the day that you are living right now. You allow for the clarity that comes in to be able to soak itself into how you then define decisions and choices. It is not about the conquering of a Quran that you complete an entire khatam to the extent that you don't sit for 5 minutes in the course of the month and really ask yourself, who is it that I'm becoming? What is it that I'm learning of what I bring into days of my own existence? And what am I bringing into other people's lives because of the things that exist within me? How do I understand my capacity, not just as an agent of something that is problematic, but the good that comes from me? Why am I stopping it if I can see that I have this ability? This hadith is giving to us so much that is teaching us characteristically what is inherently embedded in the uniqueness that is the month of Ramadan. Futihat abwab al-Jannah, the gates of Jannah are open. May Allah bless us to be people of His paradise. Ghuligat abwab al-Nar, the gates of Jahannam are closed. May Allah protect us from it always. Wasufidat al-Shayateen, and the Shayateen are chained. May Allah enable us to live in such a way where we support one another through our strongest and weakest of points, and we do not assist Shaitan in victory over our sisters and brothers. Everybody's got stuff going on in their life, man. It's time to let this religion actually be something that allows for inward transformation. So that in a world right now that is literally colder than cold, we don't need people's permission to live by our faith. We just have to start doing it in the ways that we have the ability to. Just because the gates are open doesn't assume that you don't have to walk through them still. Allow for exertion that is rooted in ethics, that is influenced by hope that our theology and law seeks to inculcate within us as a necessary ingredient for behavior that influences choices and decisions. Inshallah ta'ala, Allah Azza wa Jal will bless all of us to reach this month of Ramadan and enable us to take full benefit from it individually as best as we can. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. If I can just ask all the brothers to move up, if you could fill up wherever there's carpet in front of you. It's getting pretty filled towards the back of the space, especially those who are in the front. If you can move forward, what ends up happening when we stand to pray is that people continue to join, and there's a lot of room in this space, but then they stand in places that they shouldn't be standing. So if we can make sure to make room, be appreciated, inshallah. This Ramadan is going to be the first Ramadan in its entirety that we experience in this new space Allah has blessed us with. May Allah make it a Ramadan, a benefit for all those who are here. In the last few weeks, Allah has blessed me to be able to go to different parts of the world. I was in Egypt, then I went back to New York, and then Sudan and to Jordan with members of our community to do relief work for Palestine. There's a lot of people who are hurting in the world right now. May Allah make it easy for them. Days and weeks, especially when Ramadan, I'll do my best to honor the stories of those who gave me permission to enter into their lives, even for a moment. But what I would ask you from today, within your intention of how it is that you ready yourself in these remaining days of Sha'ban and allow for yourself to experience Ramadan, you got to let real mahabba for things that are good just enter into your heart. Love for those things that only bring benefit to you and others. Because I could tell you about streets that I walked through in Khartoum. Miles and miles of buildings that were indiscriminately filled with millions of bullet holes, the shrapnel of missiles, tank fire, grenades. Humans doing this to humans. Their motivation rooted in that which is materialistic. I can tell you about women that I sat with who were the only doctors serving tens and thousands of internally displaced people in Sudan who had walked for days fleeing massacres where soldiers came and assaulted men and women alike, taking everything that they possibly could in every way you can imagine. And amongst those who were displaced were doctors who also lost everything and stepped up to now be the physicians serving their people, one for every 5-10,000. And doctors who were saying to me that amongst them are women who are in the hundreds that were pregnant as they fled this violence. A third of whom who will need C-sections, but the camps didn't even have showers. None of these people bathed for 4 months. 100 of whom were in their last month of pregnancy, meaning that they were in their second or third trimester as soldiers shot at them, took everything from their homes, and made them run on foot. The hardest conversations were with those who realized at that point in time that they were in fact they were in fact pregnant now because of assaults from soldiers on them. You have to be willing to become a person of real beauty. Religion is not meant to just be a source of entertainment. It's supposed to inform how we live the entirety of our day. I can tell you about tens of thousands of people that doctors pointed to me to, children, adults, especially children, though. And they said, because we don't have this medicine, this vaccination, because we don't have food, And every single concluding sentence, this child will die. These children will die. These children will die. There were 25,000 people in one of the camps I visited who had fled violence from Al-Fashr. And to feed all of them for the entire month of Ramadan would cost $500,000, $96 to feed a family of 5 or 6 for a month. This community in the last 2 weeks, from over 6,000 people, raised more than $500,000. I share that with you in the frame of what it is we are discussing. One, to be able to say, I am so proud of all of you. But two, we only recognize capacity so that we can live by it. When we went to Jordan, we sat with women and children, many of whom have no one looking after them. An elder woman by the name of Halima, who is 90 years of age, who actually lived and experienced the Nakba. People who are in a place where again and again they are seeing the realities of genocidal violence taking place against their friends, their family members, while they sit in multi-generational refugee camps that no nonprofit is going into anymore because the world is so filled with so much heaviness and darkness. How can you get to everybody? This is why hope is something that's supposed to inform our behavior. And this is why we have to be willing to not just be adults with immature nafses inside of us, but we have to wean ourselves off of the dunya and be bold and audacious enough to live in this world, but not be so attached to it that it makes us afraid to be there with people in their time of need. I went to Palestine in 2020, man. Right before COVID hit. I've never met people more beautiful than Palestinians. May Allah end the occupation, end the genocide, and make us a generation that witnesses a free Palestine in our lifetime. When somebody has nothing and they still seek to give you something, how are they made like this? Despite the difficulties of their life, they still say Alhamdulillah in almost every other certain sentence, praising God, understanding their relationship. Divine proximity is influencing their character. When I walk through the streets of Old Jerusalem on my way to the masjid, literally they would pull me into their homes, offering me food and tea. When I went to Sudan, the Sudanese people did the same exact thing. People who were displaced and had nothing and were walking down the street. And they would grab me by my hand and say, who are you and why are you here? And they would tell me to come and just drink some tea with them. How does somebody who has nothing still give you something? And when are you and I going to get over ourselves in a way that doesn't become dismissive of the realities that we have in terms of difficulty and hardship? That's not the idea. But what most of us struggle with is a burden of blessing that centers ourselves in an unhealthy way. I feel bad that Allah gave me something and didn't give it to them. How am I supposed to live like this when there's people who have this stuff? God didn't give you what he gave you to make you feel guilty in an unhealthy way. And the people that are there and around this city don't want you to feel bad about what you have. You can get whatever you want. You're just going to be asked about how you got it and what you did with it. There's no shortage of opportunities to be a source of benefit for people right now in the world, man. Bring yourself with an intention of love to this Ramadan so that your presence, your gifts that you utilize, that Allah has endowed you with, your giving, your generosity, it's not to make yourself feel better. It's so that you can understand you're a means to make somebody else's life better. Fill this room with barakah by greeting every person you can. Extend greetings of peace to those you know and those you don't know. Ask people how it is that they are doing. You're praying next to people who some of them have lost generations of family to conflict taking place in the world right now. People who haven't had jobs, not only for weeks, but perhaps months or years. Some people who are in a place where their families are stricken with all kinds of conflict. They're dealing with so much. You just have to take a minute to take a pause and say, what am I really running after that I can't just extend a smile that's a sadaqah? There wasn't a person that I met who was in a place where their inner self was succumbing to the external realities that were seeking to hold them down. This is what Ramadan can offer to us. There are people who are ugly enough that they are willing to fire millions of bullets into children's hospitals. There are people who are beautiful enough that they are working still in those places as US trained physicians for $200 a month, cutting out whatever salary they would have here just to go and help people in their time of need. What's most relevant to us is there's a third grouping of people that's possible that sees all of this happening, and they have to be able to decide how it is that they respond to it. Our theology of hope is meant to offer to us a sense of ethic that exerts action. Don't let Ramadan just be about, I read this many pages and I prostrated this many times and I went through it the same way I went through it before. Moral clarity, divine facilitation does not remove from us responsibility. If anything, it enhances it. Just live in such a way, man, today and every day that actually demonstrates you believe that there's an afterlife and that there's a day of accountability that we're going to stand in front of the divine for. And what we do now is going to determine how it is that we end up there. May Allah bless us to be people of his Jannah. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present herein and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here, only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Ya Rabbi, you have told us through your beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that when Ramadan begins, the gates of heaven are opened. So we stand before you today, Ya Allah, on this Mubarak day of Jumu'ah, asking, open for us what we have closed with our own hands. Open our hearts after we have hardened them to survive. Open our spirits, our souls, after we have numbed them with routine. Open our eyes to the good you are still placing in our lives, even when we're too busy or too wounded to see it. Open the gates of Jannah for those who feel far from you, for those who think they missed too many chances, for those who believe that their sins are louder than your mercy. Remind us that you are not waiting to turn us away, but inviting us to turn back, Ya Allah. Your prophet has told us that in this month, the gates of hellfire are closed. So close for us the doors we keep walking through, even though they leave us empty. Close the doors of resentment we revisit again and again. Close the doors of habits that promise comfort but deliver regret. Close the doors of despair that whisper that we are beyond repair. Protect us from becoming people who believe that Jahannam, hellfire, is closed while we continue to create hell for one another in this world. Through our words, our silence, our lack of compassion, our refusal to forgive. He taught us that the shayateen are chained, Ya Allah. So if we still struggle, if we still fall short, let us be honest with ourselves. Let this coming Ramadan be a mirror before it is a shield. Show us where our egos still rule, where our desires still dictate, where our fears still keep us from becoming who you created us to be. Don't let this truth discourage us. Let it empower us. If the shayateen are restrained, then growth is possible. If the path is clear, then change is within reach. Give us the courage to do the inner work that we often postpone until a later time that never comes. Teach us how to fast in a way that transforms us. Let our hunger soften our hearts. Let our thirst remind us of those who live without choice. Let our restraint train us to pause before we speak, before we judge, before we harm. Make our prayers in the coming month of Ramadan more than simply motions. When our minds wander, gently bring us back. When our words feel heavy, lighten them with sincerity. When we feel nothing at all, remind us that showing up still matters. Ya Allah, there are prayers we are too afraid to say out loud. There are wounds we don't know how to explain. There are hopes we buried because disappointment felt safer. You know all of them, Ya Rabbi. So we ask of you to answer what we say, heal what we hide, and give us what we don't yet know how to ask for. Make this coming Ramadan a turning point for us, not because we desire to become perfect, but because we desire to become intentional. Let us leave the month lighter, less attached to what harms us, more anchored in what brings us closer to you. When Ramadan ends, Ya Allah, don't let the doors you open feel like they've slammed shut. Let the patience we learned stay with us. Let the mercy we received flow through us. Let the closeness we tasted remind us that you are always near. And help us to use these days to get ready for that blessed month, Ya Rabbi, to not be caught off guard, but to allow for ourselves to take as best as we can because we prepared ourselves for it. Accept from us what is sincere, forgive us for what is lacking, and keep us always, Ya Allah, walking towards you, regardless of what day, what month it is that we find ourselves in. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول